the heArtist podcast with John White.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new format of the heArtist podcast. I am John White, the heArtist. I'm pretty excited. This is the new format here. For those of you that are watching, I'm actually not sure on how this is going to work out. If it's only going to be on YouTube, hopefully I can get it to work out through Spotify. But yeah, if you're listening, it may be a little bit different than what you're used to. I'm not going to be able to clean up as much of the garbage as I have before, my awkward moments, certain things to make it sound super uber professional. I guess if it did before, I'm not exactly sure, but as best as I could, I really did a good job of trying to put a lot of work into trying to clean up all of my little mistakes. And with the video format, I'm just actually not able to do that. And to be honest with you, I'm pretty comfortable with that at this point in time. So yeah, if you notice, I guess when you're listening to this, if you do hear some pauses throughout this and maybe a couple more more than usual, it's going to be difficult doing this episode, this one specifically, just because I have the video format going and I don't have a guest here. So I'm not actually able to, you need to think in between thoughts to kind of figure out exactly how you want to portray ideas, and not being able to edit that stuff out. It's going to be a little difficult. So I do have a little notebook here that I'm going to refer to. So if you hear pauses here and there, I'm just referring to my notes to kind of remind me and keep me on track of where I'm at, because any of you that know me personally, I can be a little bit all over the place. So I'm excited about this new format because for a lot of reasons. But I wanted to take this episode specifically to fill everyone in on what's to come. Recently here, I have really put it all together. It's actually been a year now since the podcast has started. It started back in July of 22 last year, and now it's been a year. And yeah, I've gone through a lot of different phases, I guess. Not many. I can't say a lot. I've gone through a couple phases during this time period where the podcast has been released, since it's been released, and I'm at a new point in this whole podcast thing, and I'm very excited about it. I think it's something that ultimately, when I started this is what this was going to lead into, and it's this idea of, let me go back a little bit before I get into exactly what it's going to be. Let me go back to the beginning of this journey / awakening that I had 7 years ago, around 7 years ago, whatever the math is now. That journey was, at that time, I needed a lot of change in my life, and I wanted happiness. I wasn't happy. And I needed to find that whatever way I could. I needed to really start to break myself down, I guess is how it all played out. I really needed to discover what I later learned. I needed to discover all my different parts and all the different all the different parts of myself, to kind of combine them into one. And that being who I am, as opposed to identifying as a dad, just as a dad, etc. And yeah, finding happiness was the key. And then it became discovering all of these parts of myself to be able to be more of those parts and I guess, express all those different parts. I had to learn how to express those different parts of myself separately throughout this process that took place. And I kind of jumped a lot into each one of the parts. I went really heavy into my creativity for a while. I had already went heavy prior to all this into like my competitive side and my, my love for sports and all of that. This turned into a little more of the, I like to think of the masculine and feminine energies, or the left and the right brain. And this was more about getting over to my right brain, being a little more in the feminine energy and being more in the creative space and being a little more gentle, I guess, as opposed to being, I was really out of balance, and I was trying to balance the left and the right out. And through finding all my different parts, I ended up being able to do that. The podcast, when I started the podcast was about, at the very beginning, it was about this vulnerability thing, speaking my truth out loud and putting myself out there in front of people. And I had secluded myself for so many years that I didn't, wasn't around people much. And I really needed to, everything for me and maybe for a lot of people is, there's a balance in life, and we as humans sometimes tend to go way too far one way or the other. In order to be able to find that balance, you kind of got to go too far in one direction or the other and say, okay, this is too far, this is the limitation. Let's dial it back to this is my safe space or my happy place, I guess, in that. And yeah, I needed to figure out what that was, and I did that very well. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but I figured that out. And pushing myself, being doing the most uncomfortable thing I could possibly think to do, is put my voice out there for it to be judged, my opinions and my ideas, my beliefs. It was extremely uncomfortable. And now here we are at the next phase, which is putting my face to all of it. And through that vulnerability, the beginning of the podcast, or the first year of doing it, I really gained a lot of confidence and got a lot more comfortability with myself. And so this isn't as big of a deal as I thought it would be. I'm actually pretty comfortable with this. I mean, I'm recording this now, so who knows when it comes to actually pushing that button to actually release it out to people. We'll see. But let's see, where was I at here? At this point, it's time to move on to the next phase. And the next phase is this conversation I've been talking about. I talked about before about having these conversations about grief. It's not going to be that. Some of it will be that. Some of it will be conversations that will have to do with grief. Sure, that's a part of my life, but I'm realizing through this entire process that the one thing that would bring me the utmost happiness, my ultimate goal, is to be able to, I feel at my best when I'm balanced and I'm able to help other people find their happiness. That is my ultimate happiness in life. Primarily through my kids, my family and friends, and then others outside of that whenever I get the chance. And I feel like this next phase this next part of the podcast is going to be able to do that for me. I think that, so what's going to happen is I'm going to start doing, as you can see, there's another empty seat over here that I'm going to do. It's going to be a conversation, like I said. It's not going to be an interview, but there'll be some questions mixed into it. The first year was about me in this podcast. I've told as much of my story as I pretty much can at this point, and it's time to bring my family in. We all have very different personalities. We're all different for sure, but we as a whole, I like to think of us as like, for the old heads out there, I like to think of us as like Voltron. or maybe the people that are familiar, a little more familiar with the Power Rangers, I like to think about it like each one of us brings something different to the table, and we all kind of come together as one, and we're this unit together. And I want to, in this podcast, be able to sit down with the individuals and have conversations with them, I'm really going to show you'll see different sides of me, I guess, with each one of them individually, because they bring out different parts of me. We have different things in common. When you get together with people that you have things in common, that part of you comes out. So you'll see different sides of me. And with that, I'm also going to have my son Jackson, my son Aiden won't do it, but hopefully at some point in time he will. My nieces and nephews and cousins and other family members, and to all kind of bring this together as one. But back to that idea of showing, us being a complete unit. It's great because I think one of the things that's missing now, and this is the part where I think it helps people, through different conversations I have with each one of them, and it's going to be very random, different things. Each one of us brings something different. And I want to be able to, like I said, through these conversations, show everybody all these different parts and how they still can work together and still get along. I've talked to a lot of people where they just don't talk to their siblings. They got to become adults. Some kind of falling out happened in their early 20s. We're in our early 20s. We're trying to discover who we are. We may push other family members' buttons a little bit much, and it's just easier in some situations to walk away and not be close to that family member. But we found a way to continue to keep this bond and this thing together. And even after losing our parents a couple of years ago, both of them in separate situations, we've been able to, even through that, stick together. And more than any time we needed each other, we had each other during that time period, and it was fucking awesome. I don't know how else I would have got through it, and I've mentioned that numerous times. But showing everybody these different parts, it hopefully will help other people. It will help you or anybody that start to look at your own family dynamic and friendships in a different light, and maybe be a little more understanding towards other people. I think I've actually talked about this in podcasts before, but seeing how that works, that dynamic works. The world that we're in at this point in time, social media, everything, it seems like there's so many labels that want to be thrown on people. You're this, you're that, you're on the left, you're on the right, you're whatever it is. Whatever the label has to be, people just need labels thrown on to identify what people are. I just absolutely think we have so many parts within ourselves that there's no way to put a label on any one of us individually. We have so many things to offer, and when you have so many different parts of you that you have access to and you appreciate and you have confidence and you love those parts of you, you're able to be your wholeness, yourself, who you really are. And that in turn, bringing that individuality, that uniqueness of yourself to the table, it feeds into the oneness of all of us. We are all one. I personally believe that we're all connected. Everything on this entire planet, this universe, everything is connected in some way, shape, or form, especially here on this planet, and especially being humans. We have so much in common, but the beauty is when we all find our own individual traits and our own uniqueness that we bring to the table. That really helps the collective, and all of that creative juice. That sounds weird. Spills into something that can be super productive, that new ideas and views come out of. And I think that's where the real beauty in being a human lies. So I just want to like help people escape their personal sufferings that they're in at this point in time. You know, like maybe that's a little harsh to say, but through like realizing their potential, seeing themselves through others, and you know, this being my family at first here, seeing all of their parts as one unique self. It's empowering. It's empowering for me. It has been for me to do it. And I want to share it with other people and share that process and getting there and helping other people be able to get to that point where I'm at. And I'm very happy. I'm starting to finally be able to understand this idea of living in gratitude. I really am. It's starting to become more normal in my life where it just actually happens without me having to really try to focus on it. And it's nice. And I want to be able to share that with other people. You know, the worst case scenario of this entire podcast experiment is that I don't know, my family, we at least get to have a better understanding of each other, and we get to have a bunch of fucking fun doing it. My brother and I did we did a practice run last week, and I wanted to be able to see if I was actually able to sit seriously with the camera and everything going on and do an interview / conversation with somebody and see if I could facilitate that. One of the biggest things for me, this new format really isn't about me as much as the old format was of just me recording myself. It's more about the person that I'm with. And one of the things, and this is kind of hard for me to admit, well, I don't know, it's not really that hard for me to admit. One of my biggest flaws is my listening skills when it comes to communicating with people. I always thought I was a strong communicator because I am very good at articulating my feelings and getting across my points. But I didn't realize that there was two parts of that, and I didn't realize that the listening part was just as equally as important. And it was just ignorant. It was just complete ignorance on my behalf. But when I really recognized that, I started to see the mistakes I made quite a bit in conversations where I would want to jump in, and I could catch myself now. And it's a work in progress. And this format is going to be gigantic for me in trying to, it's forcing me to really shut up and pay attention and listen. Not only not talk over somebody, but actually listen to what they're saying and know when to shift the conversation to the next point. And I have a very good idea of how I want to do it. I think it's definitely different. It's going to be kind of I have a very dry sense of humor. My family, we all have a dry, sarcastic sense of humor. Very dark too at the same time. So it's going to be, it'll be fun. I promise it'll be definitely different. There'll be a lot of laughter in it because, well, I think so at least. I think we're pretty fucking funny. I don't have the chance of being able to, I guess, express or get my humor out during when I'm sitting here having a conversation one-on-one with a microphone. It's really weird when there's no one to bounce the humor off of. It's going to be a fun experiment. My first guest, I'm excited about announcing. My first guest is going to be my son, Jackson. I don't know if I said that earlier or not, but I'm very excited about sitting down one-on-one with him and picking his brain about maybe some deeper things that him and I have never talked about, getting his perspective from a kid's point of view on life in general. And I don't know, get a little glimpse into the father-son goofy relationship that we have, also serious and in-depth. Like I said before, my son Aiden won't do it. He is the absolute opposite of Jackson, and that's okay. But I plan on also having my nieces and nephews on the show. I think it will be fun to sit down with the kids and See what they got to say about some deep questions. I, in general, am a deep person when it comes to conversation. I love deep conversations, and typically I'm not allowed to do that. So this also gives me a access to each one of them individually to sit down with and get to have some deep conversation that only usually drunk John gets to do. So it'll be fun. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I hope you like the setup. It will change as time goes on. I have a lot of work to do as far as the equipment goes and logistics of everything. Hopefully the sound is good. Hopefully it's not too bad. There's not a lot of dog licking and all of that. But yeah, thanks again. I appreciate you, friends. I appreciate you all for watching. It's going to be fun. This is going to be definitely different than maybe anything that you've ever watched or listened to. I hope. Thanks again. I love you.
If you'd like to learn more about me and my experiences, follow @AwakenHeArtist on Instagram or visit the website awakenheartist.com.